I'm Benny Johnson, and welcome to the Benny Report. 11-year-old Davon McNeil walked the familiar red brick of the Washington, D.C. Anacostia projects on the night of July 4th, 2020. Davon was proud of the football jersey he wore on his walk. He was a football star at his middle school. Davon's dreams of playing in the NFL ran through his head as he approached the family member's house to get a phone charger. Davon wanted a phone charger to charge his phone so that he could film the fireworks that night. It was the 4th of July. Davon never got to film the fireworks or wear an NFL jersey. As he reached for the door handle, Davon was struck in the head with a bullet fired from a car in a random drive-by shooting in his impoverished neighborhood. Davon died at 11 years old. The media did not make Davon a national figure. You never heard Davon's name chanted in BLM marches. BLM certainly did not show up to help his family. Their founders were far too busy buying real estate in neighborhoods much nicer than Davon's. No memorials or big yellow letters were painted in the street where Davon died. Politicians did not visit. They would never dare. Here's why. The Democratic Party is in complete and total control where Davon died. They have been for generations. His death is a direct result of their failed leadership and corrosion of safety for Black Americans, for all Americans. That is why Democrats do not want you to remember Davon. If you did, you may ask the question, do Democrat politicians actually care about Black lives? Democrats say the words Black Lives Matter again and again. It became an incantation forced on people. Watch this strange clip from the Oscars this year.
And Black Lives Matter. Say it with me, Jimmy. Black Lives Matter. Louder, Jimmy. Black Lives Matter. Louder, Jimmy. Say it so that Mike Pence can hear it. Black Lives Matter. That's right.
Okay, nothing says sincerity like screaming something at the Oscars on a stage full of rich people. What's going on here? It's called a virtue signal. It's when people without virtue tell the rest of us that they are virtuous and then do nothing. The queen of this is Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi put on a kente cloth and kneeled in the U.S. Capitol on the Capitol floor. She could not stand up after kneeling, an apt metaphor. When was the last time our political class stood up against anything that is truly harming Black Americans, harming all of us? We are all Americans. We live in the same nation. Our lives matter. Talk is cheap. If Democrats say Black Lives Matter, the only way to find out if they actually mean that is to look at their policies and the results of their policies. Let me suggest to you that if you are not taking seriously the following issues, you do not care about Black lives. First, 2020 was the deadliest year in modern American history. In a recent report, the Council on Criminal Justice looked directly at police crime records. What they found was shocking to the core. Homicides, aggravated assaults, gun assaults skyrocketed in America's Democrat-run cities in 2020. Homicide rates increased by 42% during the summer and 34% in the fall. Look at this data. These are Democrat-controlled cities. The three largest cities in the sample, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, accounted for 40% of the additional homicide victims in 2020. At the end of 2020, Chicago police reported a 50% jump in murders. Los Angeles, 30%. New York City, 40%. Black people are disproportionately represented in these cities. Official FBI crime statistics state that over half the homicide victims in America are indeed Black. This massive increase in homicides will disproportionately affect Black Americans, just like Davon McNeil. Why are we not talking about this atrocity? How did we get here? The easy answer is the policies of the Democratic Party. Researchers found that COVID restrictions and lockdowns accelerated crime. Turns out that destroying someone's livelihood and locking them in their homes is not good for a person's well-being. The cities where crime spiked also happen to be the harshest lockdown cities. Places with single Democrat rule. Chicago, New York, LA. Detroit and St. Louis also suffered horribly. The CCJ reports states that social distancing measures were affected also crime scene investigations, and community outreach to prevent crime. Lockdowns equal more deadly crime, period. The results are in. And Democrats are still calling for more lockdowns. Here's another cause of catastrophic spike in death in 2020, lifestyle. We know now that 80% of severe COVID cases were in obese and overweight people. The CDC says this directly, that obesity increases your risk of hospitalization and death. Our Health and Human Services Department says African American women have the highest rates of obesity compared to other groups in the United States. 4 out of 5 African Americans, and this is directly from our government, 4 out of 5 African American women are overweight or obese. This is directly from HHS. So why are we not talking about this? It's not just COVID. The majority of leading deaths in America are comorbidities of obesity. Again, this list is directly from our government. So when are we going to start talking about the health of our people? If you love a country, certainly you want to see its people survive, pandemic or otherwise. All lives matter, especially the unborn. Take this from a new father, as I am. If you believe Black Lives Matter, you would have an honest conversation about the practice of abortion and what it has done to the black community. According to research that can be found directly in the congressional record we are reading right now from congress.gov, black Americans make up 14% of childbearing population, yet obtained 38% of the reported abortions. Black women have the highest abortion ratio in the country. 19 million black babies have been aborted since 1973. Those are the facts. That is the population of Florida. It should sicken all of us. Planned Parenthood, the #1 abortion provider in America, receives the majority of its financial support and cult-like defense from national Democrats. Planned Parenthood just admitted this week that their founder, Margaret Sanger, was a racist eugenicist and will be removing her name from buildings. Okay, great. If you are against racism and the destruction of the black community, how about removing the Planned Parenthood buildings altogether? That would be a great start. Ironically, and this is ironic because the name states Black Lives Matter, but the BLM movement itself may be the highest contributor to the highest spike in black death in a generation. The chaos and hysteria created by the corporate embrace of the BLM movement this year made America less safe than it has ever been in our lifetime. Research proves it. Travis Campbell, a PhD researcher in Massachusetts, found that a massive 10% spike followed immediately BLM rallies in major American cities. We saw this research play out in real time. Dozens of Americans were killed in BLM protests this year. Many of them were black. You can see their faces right now on the screen. This is a tragedy, each and every single one. So why the correlation between BLM and death? It's a simple word: depolicing. It turns out when you demonize and assault and threaten the police, they tend to hold back out of fear or quite literally quit the profession entirely. You're seeing that across the country. Many blue cities succeeded in defunding their police. The carnage from that decision has been horrific. Studies consistently show that more policing lead to less crime. Less police lead to more crime. So who are affected by this nightmarish spike in crime in the inner cities? Disproportionately black Americans. Yet to this day, prominent national Democrats continue to demonize and call to abolish the police. Just last week, a member of the squad, Rashida Tlaib, recently tweeted, "Policing in our country is inherently and intentionally racist. No more policing. No more incarceration. It cannot be reformed." Tlaib was congratulated by part-time mob leader, domestic terrorist, and fellow Democrat Maxine Waters for the sentiment, and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi backed them both up. Joe Biden himself has called for the partial defunding of police, which makes you wonder, do Democrats care about black lives? You have to ask the question. Ultimately, you have to ask the question. Words and talk are meaningless. Action is everything. Have any of these ghouls ever taken their motorcades or private jets to the neighborhoods where black lives are actually taken on a regular basis? How about Davon McNeil's neighborhood? It's right across the river here in D.C. It's not far from the U.S. Capitol. It wouldn't be a long trip for any of them. Why not go there and ask the people in that neighborhood if they want their police defunded? I did. We did on this show. And this is what they had to say. About defunding the police, getting rid of the police. Do you support that?
Get rid of the police. They need more police everywhere.
I would just perfectly like to see the city even enforce more police around here.
We need more police out on the street.
It's not just Washington, D.C. We traveled across the country asking this question. Of note, we traveled to St. Louis, Missouri, the country's most dangerous city per capita, the deadliest city in America. And do you know what those residents said?
the
I'll show you.
defund the police movement, saying we should defund our police. What do you think about that? Would that be right for St. Louis?
Absolutely not. I think we need more police.
It's ridiculous. You're gonna say they're all bad when, you know, there's bad everywhere, but doesn't mean everybody's bad. You know, 2 bad cops doesn't make the whole thing bad, and defunding them is ridiculous. Like, you need them here. What are you gonna do without them when something happens?
Not a single person we spoke with and asked that question wanted their police defunded. Most Americans we spoke with on those segments were indeed black. The numbers do not lie. A poll from this week shows that fewer than 1 in 5 support the defund the police movement. In their rabid quest for power, Democrats have made Americans less safe. They have made America a less safe place for all of us, but especially for black Americans. I have seen the results with my own 2 eyes. I live in a neighborhood not too far from where Davon was killed. I coach in the same football league that Davon played in. My home is close to where the football field he played on is. It's around the corner. I know his grandfather. Playing on the screen right now is footage from my cameras on my home. Outside of my home, you can see a mass homicide attempt on my block. A block surrounded by playgrounds and schools and football fields. A person who was shot in an attempted gangland assassination dove into my yard for cover. This is how children live in Democrat-controlled cities. You are lucky to make it out alive, and many do not. I'm a father now, and the protection of my daughter weighs on my shoulders every single day. Homicides and violent crime in D.C. have skyrocketed. Not where Nancy Pelosi lives, mind you, but certainly where normal people live, like me and my neighbors. This is why my family and this show this week are moving to the free state of Florida, where crime and anti-riot laws have recently been passed and hardened. I could not be happier. This show, I think, could not be more relieved. D.C. is not the same place, and it's sad. I've been here for a decade, and when I moved here, it was not this city. This city has been destroyed by the leftists who do not care about black lives or white lives or American lives. They only care about power. And the easiest way to strip them of power is to move with your feet, to vote with your feet. Move out of the tyranny states to the free states. Strip these bloodthirsty tyrants of their tax base and congressional seats. Take away their power to destroy and hold them accountable. Do it for Davon McNeil. Davon's life mattered. Your life matters. All life matters. Let's start acting like it. America, before it's too late.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.